What is happening, guys? My name is Muffin, and welcome to yet another top 3 video. Last time we did the top 3 power-ups that you can find in Battlefront. The time before that we did the top 3 charged star cards, but today we're doing the top 3 traits that you can use in Battlefront to your ability. But before we get into that, I would like to talk about you guys and the channel. So somewhat recently, we passed 100 subs, which is awesome, and I really like to see that, and the quality of the subscribers that have subbed has been amazing. You guys have been so responsive. You've been commenting on what your top 3 power-ups are, what your top 5 weapons are, your rating out of a certain star card. That is what I love to see. I'd much rather take a comment over a like any day of the week. I love it when you guys comment on my videos. Keep on doing that. So basically, in sum, thank you guys so much. You make this channel amazing. But enough of that. We're going to delve right into the video, which is the top 3 power-ups. And as with any top 3 or top 5 video that I do, I just like to do a little disclaimer in the beginning to say that this is opinion. So my top 3 could be the same as yours or completely different. Mine is no more valid or less valid than yours. It's total opinion. So what works for me could be just different for someone else, and for you and another person, etc. So let's jump right into the video. So traits are a little bit more unique than certain star cards, abilities, power-ups, etc. because they have 3 levels of intensities: 1 tier, 2 tier, and 3 tier. And now each of those tiers has a more, how should I put it, a more vital and relevant part on the battlefield. For instance, tier 1 of any trait is actually the most important, and then tier 3, and then tier 2. Because tier 1 is going to be your constant buff that you get whenever you're going through the game, because you could never get to tier 3, and that could still really help you. Now tier 3 is also important because that's when the double boost comes in, and that's when you're going to get a lot of kills from whatever trait you're using. Tier 2 is probably the least vital because, again, it's not a constant buff, and yet it's not quite where tier 3 is. Not to say that being at tier 2 isn't good. Tier 2 definitely has its time and place and can really kick ass on the battlefield. But then again, it doesn't have the same consistency as a tier 1 or the same kick as a tier 3. Alright, so let's jump right into my third pick, number 3, and that goes to the Bounty Hunter trait. Now, the tier system for the Bounty Hunter trait goes as follows. Tier 1, you get a 25% chance at getting a power-up after each kill. Tier 2, 50% chance at getting a power-up after each kill. And Tier 3, 50% power-up chance to get after each kill, plus your cooldowns almost reset after each kill. They don't reset, but a lot of time is knocked off on those cooldowns. Now the reason why the Bounty Hunter trait is at tier 3 instead of higher or lower is because it can go really great or it can go really poorly. You could be at tier 2 and get a power up. Yes, I got a power up. It's a fucking squad shield. Fuck. That's the kind of thing that happened. Or you could be at tier 1, only tier 1, and then you get a thermal imploder, and then boom, you're in action, alright? It totally is chance with the Bounty Hunter trait. But it does consistently get you a lot of power-ups, which can result in a lot more kills, and it can feed on itself. Let's say you're at tier 1, you haven't gotten any kills yet. Boom, you get a kill. Then you get a thermal imploder. Then you can use that thermal imploder and get 2 more kills. Then you're at tier 2, and then you get another power-up right off the bat. Let's say it's an infantry turret. Then you get 2 more kills, and then boom, you're right about at tier 3, and it can go that fast, alright? The Bounty Hunter trait was my favorite go-to trait before they nerfed it. It used to reset your reset your star cards instantly, and you could just absolutely destroy with something like the jump pack and bowcaster. Then they got rid of that for good reason, although I was a little bit disappointed. They got rid of that, and now it dropped to number 3. So that was number 3. Put in the comments below if you agree, disagree, if you still use it or not, and let's move to number 2. Now, number 2, I know, is the go-to favorite of so many players. So many players use this trait, and I know it's their favorite, and it is the Scout trait. The reason why the Scout trait is so good, in my view, is because of that tier 1 ability. It doesn't allow your opponents to see you on the radar when you're sprinting. And most of the time in the game, unless you're in a firefight, you're actually sprinting. So that can be extremely good, especially for flanking on large maps and getting around your opponent and getting the jump on your opponents. It can be so good. Tier 2, however, less important. It's not very good, because if you think about it, you're going to be still, and that Tier 1 wouldn't have kicked in by now. And yeah, it's just not really there, Tier 2. And then Tier 3, on the other hand, where both of Tier 1 and Tier 2 are kicked in, but Tier 3, your weapon heat resets after every kill. And that can be extremely good, especially when you're in a firefight with about 4, maybe even 5 people. You can get a lot of kills, especially if you do something like disrupt them. You won't have to worry about that cooldown. And then you can just pick off one by one by one, and it can be extremely good. Honestly, I don't think this trait has any drawbacks. Its Tier 1 is very consistent and always helpful. Tier 3, great for great packs of enemies. And Tier 2, not really there, but hey, it does its job on the battlefield. The only reason that's at number 2 is because, well, I love number 1. And let's jump right into that. Number 1, it's the Berserker Trait. This came on a little update edition, hut contract, and I tried it out, and wow, that thing kicks ass. And I'm going to tell you why right here. Now, the Berserker Trait is probably the most unique of traits because it gives a drawback while having a boost at the same time. Now, that drawback is that no matter what tier you're on, you will have incredibly slow health regeneration. That's something that you have to look out for when you're playing with the Berserker Trait. You'll get used to it over time, but you have to look out for that because your health regeneration will be very, very slow. However, the tier system goes as follows. Tier 1. Your blaster does 25% extra damage when hurt. Tier 2, your blaster does 50% extra damage when hurt. And Tier 3, I could be wrong in this, I think it's your blaster does 50% extra damage when hurt. It might be 75, but let's just stick with 50. You can correct me in the comments. And in addition to that, you have increased blaster damage resistance. So it'll take your opponent longer to kill you. The thing about the Berserker Trait that I find is somewhat OP is that bonus damage will actually activate even if you have the smallest amount of health off. So you could be at 95 health and that extra bonus damage would kick in, allowing you to finish off most opponents very quickly. But the bigger picture about the Berserker Trait is that it allows you to even out fights if you're on low health. Let's say you're actually on 50 health, not like 95, because that's more theoretical. But let's say realistically you're at 50 health and you're against someone with 100 health. You could easily win that fight with the Berserker Trait because you have bonus blaster damage and your opponent does not. You can win that fight, which is what the Berserker Trait does that no other trait does. It is so good at that. What I feel is a lot about Battlefront is one-on-one engagements and surviving for the next one. When you're facing a 100 health opponent and you're at 100 health and you have the Berserker Trait, by the time he lands a few shots on you, that bonus damage will kick in and you will be able to finish off your opponent first before he finishes you, which is why the Berserker Trait is so good. And then what I love most about the Berserker Trait is that Tier 3, because not only, so before at Tier 1 it would even that fight. But if you're at Tier 3, you're actually more likely to win that fight. Because not only do you have especially increased blast damage, but you also have damage resistance to their blaster, which means that you're almost guaranteed to win that fight if you're at fairly good health. Don't be mistaken, you're not going to be winning any fights if you're at 10 health, okay? I suggest just getting out of there if you have 10 health and regenerating your health, okay? But if you have a solid 50 health or more, maybe even a little bit less, you can win that fight easily with the Berserker Trait at Tier 3. Now, something that you need to know about the Berserker Trait that doesn't actually apply to any other traits is that you need a hand, a Starcard hand that actually goes with it, which is why I always run. My go-to Starcard hand is Jump Pack, Adrenaline Stim, and Back to Bomb. I might change out Adrenaline Stim for Disruption, but let's just stick with Adrenaline Stim because Adrenaline Stim and Back to Bomb are perfect for Berserker Trait. Because let's say you're at 50 health, you've just been knocked down to 50 health, and there's guys coming for you. without the adrenaline sim and without the back to bomb, you would have no way to get out of that. So with the adrenaline sim and the back to bomb, you get to choose when you want that 50%, 25% damage bonus buff from the Berserker trait, when you want it and when you don't want it. Also, the adrenaline sim is a very good star card in itself, and the back to bomb helps out with your teammates, and it gives you an overshield, which is very, very good. Jump pack is jump pack. You should always use jump pack, period, end of story. Not to say that you should always use it. I love it. I love it. I love it. All right? So that is why I love the Berserker trait. And another thing that I forgot to mention, actually, is that at least not the Scout trait at tier 3, but the Berserker trait is for really aggressive players that really like to get into the thick of it, which is exactly my playing style. If you're a really passive player and you sit at medium ranges, something like a sharpshooter or a survivor, something like that is probably a better trait for you. If you really like to get in the thick of it and take some damage, if you soak up a lot of damage, the Berserker trait will get that job done so well. It is such a good trait, and that's why I like it. And that just about does it for today's top 3 video. Be sure in the comments below to put your top 3 star card trait list, or just put your top one and why you like it so much. I'd love to see that in the comments below. Like and subscribe always, as always. My name's been Combat Muffin, and go ahead, go on the channel, check out what else we have. We have comparisons, star card reviews, top 5 lists, top 3 lists. Go check it out. We've got it all. Check that out. My name's been Combat Muffin, and I'll see you guys on the other side.